So for anyone who didn't meet me last year, I'm Lee Chan. I'm a researcher and a paediatric endocrinologist. What that means is that I'm a paediatrician by training, but I focus on dealing with hormones in childhood. These are the sort of chemical messengers in the blood that sort of signal to various organs. So I was asked to cover weight and healthy weight. So I will sort of go through the general sort of ideas through that, and then sort of talk specifically about Down syndrome. So healthy weight and why is it important? I suppose we now know that excess weight is associated with complications. Some of those complications are diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea, so problems with sleep, heart issues, joint and mobility issues, and also liver problems. And healthy weight is dependent on age, sex, and ethnicity. So actually, in terms of if someone is South Asian, they need to be a slightly lower BMI or body mass index, a lower weight, compared to someone who is white, to avoid some of those complications. This is a big issue for society, so it's not just Down syndrome, it's a big issue for society. So in 2021, the estimates are 25% of adults in England are obese, and 1 in 4 children aged 10 to 11 are obese within England. So to understand weight in childhood, you need to sort of understand growth curves. So you may or may not have seen some of these. So these are Down syndrome growth charts. And the top half of the chart is depicting height, and the bottom part is weight. So the 50th percentile, so this line here, means the average for the population. So that's average for weight and average for height. And as soon as you start veering out of what we call these normal curves, then you understand there's a problem with weight and height. So this is the growth chart for boys and the growth chart for girls. And often people use the words body mass index as a marker for whether someone is obese, overweight, or not. And the way you calculate body mass index is weight in kilograms divided by height in meters that is squared. And this changes with age, and it doesn't take into account of what is fat and what is muscle. Because obviously, if you're muscular, that weight is good weight. So, you know, it's a good readout, but it's not perfect. So we also have body mass index charts. These are charts for children within the general population, boys and girls. And as you can see again, so age is at the bottom, and then this BMI, kilograms per meter squared, is on the y-axis. And you can see as you grow, the BMI changes. That's the only thing you need to take away from these charts. So in children, when you sort of talk about BMI, you need to be clear what age the child is that BMI refers to. However, in adults, it's quite clear. So a BMI of less than 18.5 is underweight, over 24.9, from 25 to 29.9 is overweight, and over 30 is obesity. As I said, so certain ethnicities, there's advice that actually you will be overweight above 22.9 BMI. So we, together with Professor Striden's team, looked at diabetes and obesity within Down syndrome. So this is using GP health records and seeing whether obesity and diabetes is more common in Down syndrome compared to the general population.
Type 2 diabetes?
A combination. So I'll show you some of the graphs first and then explain the divide. So what we see here, so in these graphs, it's mean body mass index and age. So we only looked at adults onwards. But you can see that blue is the general population, and red is Down syndrome. So what that means is that people with Down syndrome have higher, on average, so it's not that every person with Down syndrome have higher BMI, but on average, BMI is higher in Down syndrome for males and females compared to the general population from a relatively early age. And this is the collective diabetes incidence. So this is both type 1 and type 2. So again, Down syndrome is in red, and the general population is in blue. And what we see is that in the earlier ages, you see an increase in diabetes in people with Down syndrome compared to controls, compared to the general population. And when you divide this up into type 1 and type 2, it's a combination of the two. So we already know people with Down syndrome are predisposed to type 1 diabetes at an early age, but we also know that there's a predisposition to type 2 that has a slightly earlier onset than the general population. So this diabetes is a combination of both type 1 and type 2. So I want to talk about sort of what determines healthy weight. So healthy weight is determined both by your genetics, so this is regardless whether you have Down syndrome or not, together with environmental factors. So you have this sort of balance that sort of, it's dependent on the amount of energy you take in and the amount of energy out. So we're talking about food intake and the sort of amount of energy you expend through exercise or breathing, so normal sort of daily functions. So the situation in Down syndrome is that there are a number of things that predispose to weight gain. So genetics, of course, will play a role, and we also know that sort of chromosome 21 may well have additional genes that predispose to this. But also the sort of higher risk of thyroid problems, hypertonia, joint stability and posture, and also congenital heart disease could all contribute to why someone with Down syndrome may find it difficult to exercise and exert sort of more energy in order to keep this balance because of the predisposition. So how do we manage this? So we know people with Down syndrome have a predisposition to weight gain. So how are we going to manage this? Unfortunately, it's all about the energy in and energy out. So, considering making this balance work for you. So when it comes to sort of energy in, we talk about food choices, food times, portion sizes, snacks, the choice of ensuring you have fruit and vegetables in your diet, choosing water over anything else when it comes to drink choices, and avoiding sort of ultra-processed foods, because we now know that sort of ultra-processed foods is not processed in the same way as food that you cook. So even though the calorie may seem the same, actually it's far more calorific. And then sort of, energy out, exercise, clubs, and being sort of generally more active. But there are other things to also consider, right? So, you need to also think about your sleep health, your mental health, and some of these social aspects, like joining clubs, have more benefit than just exercise per se. And there's some, so the Down Syndrome Association has a DSA active site where you can find more information and fact sheets about healthy living. I also found Down Syndrome Scotland had a really nice worksheet to do with food, documenting your food and exercise, and understanding where you can perhaps make a change if that's what you'd like to do. So the other part of my job is that the NHS has recently commissioned 21 clinics across England to look after children with severe obesity associated with complications. So these are called complications of excess weight clinics. So they're scattered across England, and we run a clinic in East London within Bart's Health Trust, and this is the sort of team that runs the clinic alongside King's College Hospital. And so our service includes a dietitian, a family support worker, a youth worker, and a nurse, and sort of the clinicians. And this is it really important that we have this multidisciplinary team approach to weight and healthy weight, because we know for a fact that dealing with obesity is difficult. So we also have a research study that you've heard about a little bit today called Gene Overdosage and Comorbidities During an Early Lifetime in Down Syndrome, so GoDS. And the reason for this study is to try and improve understanding of some of the health conditions in Down syndrome, to understand some of the key lifestyle factors and medical factors that might influence some of the development of conditions in Down syndrome, and to sort of be able to sort of prevent or monitor and treat things like problems with weight, diabetes and other hormonal conditions. And we're developing a survey that will be sent out through the European Down Syndrome Association to sort of capture sort of people's viewpoints about healthy weight in general. So this study consists of 12 institutions across Europe. So we have partner sites in Spain and France. This is the project website, Twitter and YouTube sites. And this, I think, video will go on to that site as well, if you've missed it. And this is the sort of contact detail if you're interested in this study. I note that sort of Leda presented her slides and it has a different mobile number, so I'm not sure whether this is exactly the correct number, but the website's the same. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.